hit like, and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where we break down the most controversial subjects, the most contested topics, the most intense debates going on in the world today. And tonight is no different. I'm so happy to see y'all here. It is an interesting night to be doing this. You know, I did my best to avoid the Donald Trump fiasco. Tonight, of course, was Donald Trump's joint address to Congress. If you don't understand, every year, the President of the United States does a State of the Union address. But during their first year, right after election, they tend not to do, no, they don't do a State of the Union address. They do a joint address to Congress, joint meaning both chambers, the House and the Senate. So it looks like it looks like a State of the Union address. It has all the trappings of a State of the Union address. It smells like a State of the Union address. It's the same pomp and circumstance, same nonstop rising and sitting. It's the nonstop clapping. It's the partisan bickering. It's all that stuff. So of course, this year it was no different. Donald Trump addressed the Congress. J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, also President pro tem of the Senate, as well as Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House. They're behind him. Two Republicans behind him. It's a fascinating thing to watch. It's the pomp and circumstance of American democracy. It's all the, you know what? It's actually easier to say what David said. It's the shit show address. There you go. Thank you. There you go. David hit the nail on the head. So that's what it was. That's what it was. And so it was a fascinating address to watch. It was funny. It was interesting. It was compelling. It was infuriating. But I think the big show, the thing that people are talking about immediately after the address, was the height of spiciness. It's when Al Greene, the congressman, the representative out of Texas, was in full protest mode. He didn't just clap or not clap the way everyone else did. He came out the gate with a little more fire than other people. I want you to check this out for yourself and see what happened. Watch this.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant at Arms to restore order to the joint session. Mr. Greene, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant at Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber. Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House. Mr. President, you continue.
Thank you.
So it's an interesting idea that he's being escorted out for not maintaining decorum. I mean, I wish they would have done that when my man screamed out, was it Joe Wilson who screamed out, "You lie," to Barack Obama after other acts of heckling that we saw. And I'm not trying to do the whataboutism that people often do in this line of work. I'm simply saying it's interesting how times have changed and how different parties handle different things. At the end of the day, Al Green deserved to be removed based on the rules of the Congress. And I think that he should be applauded for breaking those rules. I think we should be happy that somebody actually stood up. Now, Al Green ain't, I don't know Congressman very well. I know him, as we say, I know him to speak. We've attended some of the same things. He's a fairly traditional CBC member to the extent that, there's a lot of neoliberal politics there. We don't share our politics on most issues, but, there's something powerful and interesting and exciting, I would say, about somebody standing up to Donald Trump. Because when Donald Trump is getting challenged, when he's getting confronted, when they're speaking out and pushing back against him, oh, he be salty. That dumbass look he has on his face when there's nothing he can do. He's so used to being a bully. He's so used to crushing people. He's so used to being aggressive. He's so used to silencing people that when he has to stand there and just take it, he doesn't know what to do. And that is, it's quite gratifying to watch. So yes, keep speaking up, keep shutting them down, keep yelling, keep doing all the things. Screw their decorum. Yes, did he break the rules? Yes, but that's the whole point of civil disobedience, to break those rules. But Mr. Greene himself, Congressman Greene himself, explained why he did it. So I want y'all to peep that as well. He broke it down for you.
So what were you shouting to the president?
The president said he had a mandate. And I was making it clear to the president that he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. I have people who are very fearful. These are poor people, and they have only Medicaid in their lives when it comes to their health care. And I want him to know that his budget calls for deep cuts in Medicaid. He needs to save Medicaid, protect it. We need to raise the cap on Social Security. There's a possibility that it's going to be hurt, and we got to protect Medicare. These are the safety net programs that people in my congressional district depend on. And this president seems to care less about them and more about the number of people that he can remove from the various programs that have been so helpful to so many people. It is the best way to get it across to a person who uses his incivility, against our civility. He is a person who has consistently been used incivility against civility.
That's a good point. That's a good line.
I'm willing to suffer whatever punishment is available to me. I didn't say to anyone, don't punish me. I've said I'll accept the punishment, but it's worth it to let people know that there are some of us who are going to stand up against this president's desire to cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security.
So were you saying you have no mandate? Is that what you just said?
That's what he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. None.
Is the only punishment that you were kicked out, sir? Is there something?
I don't know. Whatever the punishment is, I'm not fighting the punishment. This is about the people who are being punished by virtue of losing their health care. This is the richest country in the world, and we have people who don't have good health care. We've got to do better. And now we're about to cut Medicaid, which is for poor people. Health care has become wealth care for many people, and we can't afford to let that happen.
Is that the only thing that you're protesting?
No, I have other things I'm protesting. And I'm also working on my articles of impeachment. This president is unfit. He should not hold the office. 34 felony convictions, 2 times impeached.
Sir, tell me one more time what you were shouting in the chamber.
That he has no mandate to cut Medicaid.
That's what you were saying over and
Yes.
over. Thank you, sir.
No mandate. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
No mandate. No mandate. No mandate. That is interesting, right? Obama, had a mandate, but Republicans may say he didn't have a mandate for Obamacare. It's always a interesting tightrope to walk when you start talking about who has a mandate, and then talking about who has a mandate for a particular public policy. I mean, obviously, Medicaid helps the people. The people don't want Medicaid cut. They don't want Medicare to be imperiled. I agree with him, absolutely, 1,000%. But it's also interesting to see strategically and tactically how we use the language of mandate, basically saying the people have not given you their support. You are not empowered by the people to cut their programs. I mean, it's a very interesting tactic. He's right about the vulnerability of his constituents. He's right about the vulnerability medically and economically of the people in his district when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid. So salute to him for speaking up. But it's not just him. He got carried out of that office or out of that chamber alone. But on his back, proverbially, were a whole bunch of members of Congress whose districts are saying the same thing, and really elderly people everywhere. Tragically, not enough people stood up and spoke out. I wish they'd all walked out. Which they'd all stood up. Now, we saw a few people stand up after him. We saw Jasmine Crockett walk out. We saw a few others, Nikema Williams, Maxwell Frost. At least that's what's being reported here by some people in the room here. But it's not enough. He's also talked about articles of impeachment. I like the idea of reminding the people of how trash Donald Trump is. But the truth of the matter is he ain't getting impeached. He's just not. So the question is, what do we do? I think speaking up on these concrete issues like Medicare and Medicaid are helpful, not to get rid of Trump. Trump ain't going nowhere, but maybe to help prepare a legitimate left-wing response, not a Democratic response, not a liberal response, certainly not a neoliberal response, but a legitimate left-wing response to this Trump moment. Stop trying to beat Trump by playing to the center. How about talking about a real economic shift so that we have single-payer health care? Why not talk about that? Now, this is where, again, the Congressional Black Caucus falls short sometimes. They'll offer a liberal solution that doesn't go far enough, that doesn't do enough to get us where we want to be or where we need to be as a nation. And it just becomes more fodder. Anyway, we got a lot of work to do. But shout out to Al Greene for speaking up and speaking out about this. But I do want to point out, again, Republicans heckle all the time. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, I mean, he called the police fast. I mean, fast on Al Greene. But Republican members of Congress were shouting down Joe Biden. I ain't got to go back to them. They were shouting down Joe Biden. There were crickets. Nobody got ejected. Nobody got carried out. There were no consequences at all. And Trump, he used the moment to point Democrats as bitter and ungrateful, saying that they wouldn't even clap if he cured a disease or ended crime forever. He painted himself as a victim here, when in fact, he was simply being challenged for bad public policy, the same way that Republicans allegedly were doing for Biden or were doing for Obama. But somehow there are different standards for different people. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about this speech. I want to take just a second to do just a few highlights or lowlights, as it were, from Donald Trump's speech, because this speech was bizarre in so many ways. It was quintessential Trump. It was a lot of bluster. It was a lot of bombast. It was a lot of bullshit. But they don't even pretend to be civil anymore. They don't even pretend not to be racist anymore. At this point, Republicans just stand up and be like, the Republicans just be like, fuck it. But it's our time. We just gonna do what we do, and y'all just gonna have to deal with it. Listen to this, and shout out to Aaron Rupar, who y'all know. He's been on this channel before, and he's a great reporter, follows Trump very closely. And I was following his stream on Twitter, and so he's pulled out some great quotes, and I'm gonna pull some of his quotes that he pulled from Fox News and other places, because it's absolutely fascinating to watch Donald Trump, sell this crazy vision of America that's not true, to overstate his victories, even though he's only 6 weeks in, to understate his losses, to minimize the dangers of his policies, and to just say wild stuff with absolutely no consequence at all. Listen to your boy as he's complaining basically about government waste. Here's how he talks about it.
$8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. 32.
So again, I mean, the man's got comedic timing. His team knows how to play to the cheap seats, knows how to play to the mainstream, knows how to get a good laugh. They know right now that saying anything LGBTQIA is fodder. It's red meat for lots of people. You saw lots of Democrats say that they don't support Trump's policies, but they love how he sticks it to the trans folk. I mean, they didn't say it like that, but that's basically what they were talking about. I don't want a trans bathroom, God forbid. So I'll take these shitty economic policies that ruined my whole life. This is some significant chunks of Trump's base saying this kind of stuff. But anyway, so when he says LGBTQIA, he already knows he got him. And then when he says that it's in, he said Lesotho, which no one's ever heard of. He's of course talking about Lesotho, and it's a country that, of course, people have heard of because we're not ignorant people. If you are in, I don't know, social studies class, geography, elementary school, middle school, if you went to a decent public school, private school, whatever, you should have heard of the country. But that's another story for another time. But he's literally mocking an African country, and people are laughing at it. They're actually finding it funny. And it's like, we're not 6 years old, you know. But look at how they laugh. Look how these white men are laughing in the background as he talks about Lesotho.
$8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and
the ignorance of saying, which no one has ever heard of. How dare you? Seriously, how dare you? And they're just laughing like it's a comedy room.
And Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America.
Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. For the record, in case you care, Colombia is not in Central America. Should the president know that? Yes. He also should know about Lesotho. So what are you going to do, right? We know he's ignorant, but we'll continue.
$60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This
Again,
is real.
playing into
$32 million.
Playing into
$8 million to promote LGBT.
Playing into the panic around, there's a moral panic, there's a political panic around LGBT, particularly around trans folk, that Trump is playing into as well. This is not a drill. This is not a game. This is him there's levels of ignorance here that are rarely seen. There's another moment here where he tried it around these egg prices, which I think, again, it's an important moment here. I want you to watch it. Pay attention here. Pay attention to what your boy Donald Trump did.
Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control, and we're working hard to get it back down. Secretary, do a good job on that. You inherited a total mess from the previous administration. Do a good job.
Again, now the price of eggs, which is almost like a political cliche at this stage, there was a moment where everyone was up in an uproar about the price of eggs. and he blamed it on Biden. And he said, if I'm president, I'll lower the price of eggs. Then he becomes president, and magically the price of eggs doesn't drop. Then suddenly it's not that he has the power to lower the price of eggs. It's the global markets, it's supply chains, it's bird flu, it's blah, 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 blah. It's all these reasons. It's all these reasons why it's not his fault. But somehow he can't fix it, but Biden could make it that way. This is the narrative. But if you notice in the crowd, people were groaning. That wasn't Republicans groaning at Biden. That was Democrats and other people saying, this is some dumb shit. This is some dumb shit. Please don't try to convince us, Mr. President, that somehow the price of eggs is singularly Joe Biden's fault, but can't be your fault as well. Pick one. Either the president can control this or they can't. It's not that only president can control it when it's not you. But this is a classic Donald Trump move. Promise a bunch, lie a lot, and then when it comes time, just bait and switch. This is how he moves in the world. This is how he functions. And there's a narcissism to it. I mean, watch him here as he's literally chiding Democrats for not loving him enough in public.
Such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it, no matter what. Five times I've been up here. It's very sad. Fifth such speech to Congress.
So
it's
an interesting thing. Excuse me, sorry about that audio. I'm running a little slow here with the audio, but it's an interesting thing. I've never seen a State of the Union address or a joint chamber address where it's not deeply and unabashedly partisan, where the Democrats rise for Democrats and they stay quiet for Republicans, and Republicans do the same for themselves and for Democrats, right? It's just what the thing is. But Trump is saying, forget everything you've ever seen and everything you've ever known about this topic. Forget the fact that this happens everywhere. We're going to pretend that this is only happening here, that Democrats aren't standing for me at all, and that's because I'm me. In other words, he's the victim. He's the singular figure, that Democrats are bitterly partisan and Republicans are being fair-minded. It's all bullshit, right? I mean, again, if you've watched any of these, you realize that they're all like this. They do it to every president. They do it to every candidate. That's just what these things are. That's why I hate them, right? Because they're nothing but political theater. I hate when Democrats do them. I hate when Republicans do them. I hate these things. But Trump has a way of making it seem as if something unique is happening to him and that he's uniquely being victimized by this stuff. Trump came out swinging ideologically as well, right? He was saying all the talking points. It was a campaign rally in certain ways. He's attacking LGBTQIA, he's attacking African nations. He's also, once again, waging war on this imaginary foe known as wokeness.
We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government and indeed the private sector and our military. And our country will be woke no longer.
First of all, just white people. When y'all get one of our phrases, y'all have that, y'all put that shit in the chokehold. If I never hear woke again, woke, it was such a useful term. It was great when Spike Lee was, telling us to wake up and, do the right thing, etc. When Black arts movement poets use sleep as a kind of mechanism for talking about consciousness or lack thereof. When the Nation of Islam did it, when Erykah Badu said "Stay woke." I mean, all of it was beautiful and dope and so entrenched in blackness and black truth telling. And then white people got their hands on it, and y'all just did some other shit with it. Please, y'all, don't never say that shit again. Jesus Christ! But beyond the wokeness, this was a critique of DEI, and this was a celebration that he had gotten rid of DEI and all the federal agencies, and they are standing to their feet. I mean, even, and I know it's a petty point, but look at this handkerchief head Negro right here. Look, you see Tim Scott there. Can I zoom in? I can't zoom in, but I promise you, he's there standing up for the absence of DEI. When Negro, you are the DEI in this room. You are literally the DEI in this room. Knock it off, Tim Scott. But just pay. Y'all see him? Y'all see your boy there? Yeah, I don't know if y'all can see him. Look right here. Look right here. The one fly in the buttermilk is right here. And it's ironic that this Negro will be the one doing this. But whatever. That's no extra charge for that comment. That ain't the main point. It's just something I wanted to point out. I just don't understand these people. I don't understand y'all people, man. I don't understand it. And he continues with his war on trans folk. It is becoming a weird obsession this guy has. Listen to what I'm saying.
The men off the girls. Peyton is here tonight in the gallery, and Peyton, from now on, schools will kick the men off the girls team, or they will lose all federal funding. Peyton. Again,
The language that he uses, kicking the men off the girls team, so misgendering trans people. You didn't have to call them men. That's an assault. That's an attack rhetorically on trans folk, and it's unnecessary. Look, we can have spirited debates about trans athletics or trans sibs in athletics. Like, what does that mean? What does it look like? How do we do it? I'm down to have that conversation, but he's not trying to have a conversation. He's trying to antagonize. He's trying to be hateful. He's trying to dehumanize. That's the fundamental issue. That's the fundamental issue, and that's the one that I just can't rock with. I just cannot rock with it. It's unnecessary, and it's also, again, a solution in search of a problem. Whatever you think about trans folk in sports, the idea of having to dedicate federal agency energy, federal resources to stopping this thing that is such a small part of the conversation, such a small part of the landscape. I mean, you have that many trans athletes that you're stripping funding from programs. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like this isn't where our energy should be devoted, even if you happen to disagree with it. And I am not of the belief that everybody who disagrees with trans women, because this is really what they're talking about. They don't really care about a trans man boxing or playing basketball or baseball or football, because they believe that natural selection wins out. That's their argument. I'm not saying it's true or not, but that's their argument. But when they talk about trans women playing basketball or baseball or whatever, how do I put this? I don't believe that everybody who believes that they should not play is transphobic or trans antagonistic. I think it's possible to just have a legitimate philosophical or ideological disagreement on this. But the right is making this their priority issue, and they're framing it as if it's the left's priority issue. They're playing on transphobia. They're playing on all these masculine anxieties. It's just a bizarre. It's just a bizarre conversation to have. As Rosability said, trans folks are such a tiny percent of the population. It's a manufactured issue, but that's why I think Democrats went wrong. Democrats didn't address economic issues enough. They didn't talk about the exportation of jobs. They didn't talk about all these things that are really nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes issues. And they focused on, they were responding to the right-wing attack on trans people by prioritizing that issue, but not speaking to the economic stuff too. And in doing so, I just think they paint themselves in the corner. They play right into the right-wing hands. I'm not saying they should have ignored trans issues. I'm saying they did it in a way that was only reactionary and responsive, not substantively engaging what I think might actually be the issues of the day, even with regard to trans people. So anyway, it was a fascinating moment, a fascinating opportunity that could have gone differently. I'm just going to show you a couple more clips, then we can move on to another topic before we go. But I want y'all to get a real taste of what what Trump was talking about, and what Trump was promising. Listen to him talking about. I'm going to show you two clips of him talking about tariffs.
They're really in a bad position in so many different ways. They're uninspected. They may be very dirty and disgusting, and they come in and they pour in and they hurt our American farmers. The tariffs will go on agricultural product coming into America, and our farmers starting on April 2nd. It may be a little bit of an adjustment period. We had that before when I made the deal with China, $50 billion of purchases. And I said, just bear with me. And they did. They did. Probably have to bear with me again. And this will be even better. That was great. The problem with it was that Biden didn't enforce it. He didn't enforce it. $50 billion of purchases, goods that come in from other countries and companies. They're really in a bad position in so many different ways. They're quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. It won't be much. No, you're not. Oh. Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but
that little disturbance that he's talking about might be China and other countries retaliating, imposing their own tariffs. It could be us being iced out of the global market. It could be wild inflation here. I mean, I did an interview yesterday for Al Jazeera for Upfront, which you should watch on Friday. Check it out, please. It's on Upfront, Al Jazeera, with Richard Wolff, one of the great economists of the 20th century, who talked about the tariffs and what they could mean and why they're a terrible idea and how they're such a facile, a sophomoric response to Donald Trump's stated concerns. And that tariffs are one, a kind of desperate move by an empire in decline, but also how the shit ain't going to work. And that little disturbance he's talking about are huge economic hiccups that are going to be passed on to the American people. He talked about some domestic stuff too. Particularly some criminal justice stuff that I think you all might find interesting. Listen to Donald Trump as he talks about the death penalty and imposing potentially the death penalty on people who kill.
Requiring a mandatory death penalty for anyone who murders a police officer. And tonight I'm asking Congress to pass that policy into permanent law. Executive order requiring a mandatory death penalty for anyone who murders a police officer.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that Trump wins off of, that he thrives off of. You know, a lot of people believe in death penalty. I don't, obviously, but a lot of people do. And a lot of people believe in police. And if you believe in the death penalty, you're going to think the police are the best people to be protected through it, right? It's not a terrible idea for his base. It's not a terrible idea for people who believe in the Blue Lives Matter and who believe in law and order and all this other stuff. Those are the things that make Donald Trump seem reasonable to people. Like, look, this is what we always wanted to see. He's just one of us. Again, how that gets imposed and how that gets enforced is a different conversation. And after talking about the death penalty, which again I oppose, and Donald Trump, just keeps playing into, Donald Trump was like, you know what? I haven't talked about trans people in like 30 seconds. So he jumps right back into it and starts back with trans folk. This time talking about trans folk in relation to education.
Administration is also working to protect our children from toxic ideologies in our schools. A few years ago, January, Little John and her husband discovered that their daughter's school had secretly socially transitioned their 13-year-old little girl. Teachers and administrators conspired to deceive January and her husband while encouraging her daughter to use a new name and pronouns. They, them pronoun, actually, all without telling January who is here tonight and is now a courageous advocate against this form of child abuse. January, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So a situation happens where a student or a young person, whatever, is trans and they're transitioning, and a community of people are trying to support them and to help them do so by not going by their dead name, but allowing them to use a name that reflects their gender identity, that supports them and invests in them. And should you have conversation and communication with their parents? Absolutely. Nobody should be going through this process without their parents involved and their parents in the know. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is Trump is painting a narrative that makes it seem as if the school made this girl trans, if there was a conspiracy to turn somebody trans, and that this girl was just doing it and the parents just found out, and that they are the victims of this gross educational conspiracy, as opposed to what actually happened, you know. And this is why, but again, there are people who believe in that, who believe that that's possible, and that's how Trump wins. Anyway, I could go on and on and on. Trump talked about making the United States the most dominant civilization ever. What kind of goal is that? Right? He's talked about all kinds of other things, but at the end of the day, it was exactly what you think it would be. The speech, it was as Trump can get. And watching the Republicans all come back with their leather jackets on now that Trump's president again, feeling cool and tough, is bizarre. Watching JD Vance with his weird suit on, is all of it just weird and wild. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Now let's move on to another story before we go. Black Lives Matter, another story we've been waiting to talk about. One of the most iconic protest sites in America, if you don't know it, is the Black Lives Matter Plaza. Take a look at Black Lives Matter Plaza here. I don't know if you can see it. I'm pulling it up for you. Check that out. It is one of the most iconic protest sites in America, about to get a makeover. The city just announced plans. This is in DC. The city of Washington, DC announced plans to erase the massive yellow mural and replace it with new artwork by local artists and by students. It's an interesting move and interesting timing. Mayor Muriel Bowser says it's part of a new project celebrating America's 250th birthday. But let's be real, this ain't just about art. This announcement comes one day after a Republican lawmaker introduced a bill to force DC to remove Black Lives Matter from the plaza or lose federal funding. And these mofos just caved. They folded. They folded. Why do these people fold so easily? Bowser says her focus is on jobs and public safety. Now, some people are saying, is it political? Of course it is. Is the city just evolving the space? No, they're caving to Republicans like they always do. And they don't have a date for the mural comes down, but we know it's happening. We know it's all happening. This Black Lives Matter Plaza basically being erased is a signpost that we are past that moment. We have completely, and I mean completely past the moment of George Floyd, the racial reckoning moment, the maturity of America moment. All of that is gone. We off that. Black Lives Matter moment done. We're doing something else now. What are we doing? We're anti-woke, we're anti-free speech, we're anti-democracy, we're anti-blackness, we're anti-trans, we're anti all those things. It's time to imagine some new strategies for resisting this. But to resist, we have to know what we're resisting. The 2020 moment is completely dead, and this is just a sign of it. It's not the cause of it. It's just a sign. It's just a symptom of a bigger problem. Anyway, before we go, I got to talk about Drake. Because Drake just finally caught a small, tiny W, just a little victory in his legal battle against Universal Music Group surrounding Kendrick Lamar and Not Like Us. A judge just ruled that a pretrial hearing will move forward on April 2nd, despite UMG's attempts to stall the case. That means the discovery process. That's where both sides basically got show their receipts, show what evidence they're going to have, and what they're going to use, etc. It all officially begins, even though UMG tried to block it. Now, Drake's team is calling this a major step toward exposing the so-called defamatory campaign against him. If you don't know, he's accusing Universal Music Group of secretly boosting the diss track, Not Like Us, and using unlawful, that's his language, not mine, methods to push the song, all while falsely painting him as a pedophile. Now, UMG has till March 17th to try and get the whole case thrown out. But with discovery starting, the question for me is, what are we going to really find out? What are we going to find out about Drake? What are we going to find out about Kendrick? But more importantly, in this case, what are we going to find out about Universal Music Group? What are we going to find out about the inner workings of the industry? Because if Drake is coming out and saying that he's going to keep this case moving, he must have some belief in this. Now, I don't think he's being dishonest here. I think Drake is telling the truth. I think Drake really believes that this is happening. Whether he's right or not, we'll find out. But I think he really believes it. I think he really has evidence. So I need to see that evidence. I know, iHeartRadio was a target of a Drake suit, and people thought that, they slipped Drake some money, that they settled off the books because Drake had him where he wanted them. It turned out, according to all the evidence, according to all the release, and according to iHeartMedia themselves, basically, no, we didn't have nothing to do with this. We told Drake we didn't have anything to do with it. We showed him through email that we didn't have anything to do with it. And so he dropped the charges. Now, shout out to Drake for actually dropping the charges and not trying to save face. But it goes to show we don't actually know what's true yet. We don't know who's lying, and we don't know who's just wrong, and we don't know who's correct. But we have to watch the case. But the fact that Drake has this small victory is somewhat interesting, right? Some people thought it wouldn't move forward at all, but it is moving forward. And, look, if Drake has been wronged here, I want him to get all he deserves. If he hasn't been, then I don't. It'll be interesting to see what the jury says, what the judge says, what the courts say, and what the court of public opinion says here. But just on its face, I get where Drake is coming from. Look, I mean, and Conan O'Brien made a joke about it at the Oscars. It's like everywhere you look, Drake is just being dragged through the mud with these accusations of pedophilia and with these and with the diss track that he's saying wasn't even what the people wanted. Now, where I disagree with Drake is, one, I think he's underestimating how much Not Like Us was the shit. It was the bop. It was the song in 2024. All songs, and Joe Budden, talks about this a lot. Any song that's at the top of the charts, you had to spend some money to get there. Nothing happens organically in this business for the most part. So I hear that. But Drake is wrong if he thinks that song doesn't just go, that it's not hot because people think it's hot. People really rock with the song, and that's why it's at the top of the charts. And the fact that it crossed over in the way that it did is not surprising under those circumstances. Where I ultimately don't stand with Drake on this issue is, let's say there are levers being pulled to bring you down a notch or to bring the song up a notch. Fine. How many levers are pulled for you to be at the top, Drake? You've been at the top for damn near 20 years. What levers are pulled for you? What payroll was paid for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's not have a one-sided thing. I don't think Drake is necessarily wrong. It's just weird in the middle of a rap battle or at the end of a rap battle that you're now jumping out and being litigious, Larry. That's all. I don't like it. But we'll find out what's in those cases, those files rather. Family, thank y'all for watching. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Thanks for watching Night School. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the what other button you want. I want you to hit the like button for sure. That lets those YouTube algorithms know that corporate media ain't the only game in town, that people rock with us too. I want you to also hit the subscribe button, because when you do that, you give us a stronger base and you increase our social media footprint, which allows us to get the content out to more people. And if you're so inclined, I'd love for you to hit that join button and become a monthly member of the channel. When you hit the join button and become a paid member of the channel, you give us the stability that we need, the financial stability that we need to really put the work out there and be unbought and unbossed. The only boss we have is you, the people. I don't want to be up there hoping and praying that a corporate media network or channel that fires me or doesn't fire me. I don't want to be out here hoping that I'm going to get canceled or have my voice silenced when I speak the truth to power. I want to be able to do this stuff independently, and I can't do that without your help. I can't do that without your support. So please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, but also hit that join button and become a monthly paid subscriber. It might only be $3.99 as a bronze member, but whatever it is, we are grateful for it and we love you for it. In the meantime, family, some of y'all are like, look, I would love to support your work, but I can't afford a monthly commitment of anything, not even a penny. I'm with you. Make a one-time payment. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. Look, it's the beginning of the month. It's the top of March. Y'all gonna be here all month. Make a one-time payment for the month of March. To think of it as like your monthly tuition. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it can be. If you want to give $1, I am grateful. If you want to give $1 million, I am super grateful. I'd be grateful for 2 people here to donate $5,000. There are 2 people out there right now who can donate $5,000 to this cause and who want to. I ask that you do because it helps us build what we do. But the overall ask tonight is just $10. If everybody watching tonight were to give $10, not 1, not 2, not 50, not 100, but if everybody watching right now were to donate at least $10, we will meet all of our financial goals for the month, which is what we need to pay our bills. Family, I love y'all. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.